Use case number 7. If the opportunity stage is modified, update the opportunity amount based on the probability multiplied by the expected revenue. Right? So this use case is on an update scenario. I hope you agree, because we want to track whenever the opportunity stage is modified. Now, what is the opportunity? What is the object in concern? It is the opportunity object. What is the event that you want to target here? Do you have to set a field? Yes, you have to set a field, and that field is the opportunity amount. So you would prefer going with the before update event, right? I hope you agree with me. After the 6 use cases we have discussed as of now, I hope you agree that this would be the before update event, right? So let's go to the opportunity trigger. And here we have the after update scenario, but let's put in the before update. All right. And now we want to add a check for the before update context, and we want to do our things there. Right. So this says if trigger is after, and it should be trigger dot is before and is update. Save. All right. And I have the opportunity trigger handler created already. So I'll use this and I'll say handle activities before update. Let's save this. Let's go to the trigger handler and let's create this method, or else this will error out. So I'll just say before update here. Save. Okay, we can just close this method out. It's not needed for now. This is saved, and now we can save our trigger file. Right now, let's take a look at our use case. It says that if the opportunity stage is modified, we want to do something on the field. Right now, an interesting question here arises. How do we check the modification of a field for an object? Till now we have been doing things like if the opportunity stage is closed one, if the lead source is web, we have been doing things wherein we could equate our field values to a string literal or maybe a value, a static value. But here the use case is asking us to understand whether the stage is modified or not, which means you might be on the opportunity record, you might be doing an update. How would you do an update on the opportunity record? Let me quickly show you. So let's say this is our opportunity and this is our details tab. I go in here and I modify the close date and I move it to 2023 and I save the record. The before update trigger will still be triggered, but should this calculation happen? No, because the stage was not modified. The close date field was modified. So we have to have our trigger intelligently understand whenever the update context runs in the before event, has the stage been modified or not? Right now, how do we figure out whether a stage field or maybe any field has changed in that manner or not? So we go to our context variables. Now, before going to the context variables, I hope you guys would have written some formulas, some validation rules, some workflow rules, right? Or maybe process builders. We get a facility to use the isChanged function there, right? That tells you whether a field has been modified or not. Simply by writing isChanged, you can track whether the field has changed or not. And based on the Boolean flag that it returns either true or false, you can identify that, yeah, the field has changed, and so you take your action accordingly. But here on triggers, you don't have that function available. The isChanged trigger function the isChanged function is not available. So now the question arises, how do you understand whether a specific field from the record has been modified or not in this context? Now here in this context, what do we have? We have some context variables. What are the key context variables that we have been working with? We have primarily been working with the trigger.new variable that holds the latest information. We have been working with the trigger.old variable, the older version of the record. We also have trigger.new map and trigger.old map. These are the four context variables that we have that we can use. Right? We have been using trigger.new, which contains basically nothing but list of sObject. In this case, it would be list of opportunity, right? But this will contain the new version of the data. Let me just comment it out so that it does not error out, right? This is your trigger.new. All right. Now what is trigger.old? Trigger.old also contains list of sObject, but it contains the older version of the same data that's currently being processed. right? We talked about this. This contains the older version of the same data, right? Now, trigger.newMap. What does this contain? Or how does this look like? So this is nothing but a map of ID comma S object. In this case, this would be map of ID comma opportunity. And what would this contain? This would contain the new values in key value format. Now, how would this be stored? You would have the opportunity ID as the key and the relevant and the respective opportunity record as the object. So it would be key value pair. If there are multiple records, you would have multiple opportunity IDs with their values being the entire opportunity record. If you might have 5 fields on the opportunity, you might have 500 fields on the opportunity. All the fields will be part of this particular map and will be held in this particular variable. Okay. Similarly, you might have guessed what trigger.old map would be like. So trigger.old map would be like map of ID comma S object. In this case, map of ID comma opportunity is just that it would hold the old value in key value format. Old values of the record in key value format. Right? Now let's do this. Before jumping into our use case, I'll quickly show you how things look like in these variables, right? It's important to understand what the context variable holds and how does it hold it. And once you have figured out the way the variables work, use cases will be easier for you. Okay. I'll say system.new trigger.old. Let me just reset this so that it looks neat. I made a typo. So this should be plus. Okay. Yeah. Now this debug logs look fine. Let's go ahead and try to update a opportunity record. So I'll just go in here and I'll leave this save date, close date as the future value, and I'll say save. Right. And as soon as I do that, the log should be visible. And yeah, I have a log, and I'll just open this debug log and I'll press debug only. Right? And now take a look at what we have. Now, if you notice with before update context, you have everything available, the old values and the new values, right? And if you notice trigger.new holds what? It holds the opportunity information, right? And this is nothing but list of opportunity. Right now you just see one record because we modified one record. What is the value of the close date here? The value is 2023 February 11th, right? Now let's take a look at what is in the trigger.old variable. See, this is 2022. This again holds list of opportunity, but just contains the opportunity information. Now take a look at what is in trigger.newMap. If you take a look at trigger.newMap, see how things are built up. It has the key. Now this key is nothing but the record ID of the opportunity. See this ID here, which is another field, the record ID, the unique identifier of every record. This is the key, followed by this is the value. So it's key value pair. Right? Now what do you see with this particular opportunity? See, the close date is 2023 in the new map. Similarly, with the old map, you have the ID comma list, ID comma opportunity, or rather ID comma object, followed by the close date, which is the older version of the data. Right? So now you understand what these variables hold and how do they hold them. Now you might be thinking, why do I have to use new map, or when do I have to use it? We'll talk about it very soon. Okay. Right now, if I were to do my use case, what's our question? It says if the opportunity stage is modified, right? How do I track if the field has been modified? So let me do this. I can see that there's a difference between the records of trigger.new with trigger.old. You saw that, right? The close date is different in the old map, or rather the old record here, old variable, right? Let's remove these debug logs. Let's say save here. Let's open the opportunity trigger handler and accept these parameters there. So now trigger.old and trigger.new, what should be the data type? They should be list of S object, or rather list of opportunity. So this would be new records and this should be old records. Save. So my handler has been saved. Let's save my trigger. The trigger has been saved. Now let's go ahead and try to do this use case. Now here, what do I have to do? I have to figure out if stage has been modified or not. This is my question, right? Now how do I do that? I have to find the record from new list, compare and find the same record in old list, and then check if if stage values are different. This is what I need to do, right? So both these lists contain the same kind of opportunity records, but there might be n number of them. So I have to find out the same record from both of these lists and then compare the values, right? So that's nothing but bulkifying your operation. I could have simply gone ahead and said new records of 0 and then old records of 0, and then I could have just compared whatever is in this opportunity. Let me take you this route. Let's do it from here so that you understand what not to do also, right? So let's say I have a list, but right now I'm only operating on one records, right? Now if the list has only one record, the 0th element will give me the information. So new records of 0 will give me the new opportunity values, and old records of 0 will give me the old opportunity values, right? I have both of them declared and defined and transferred into the opportunity variable. Now simply what I can do is if new op dot stage not equal to old op dot stage, this should be stage name, I can simply say system.debug stage has been modified. Can I deduce that? I can, right? Because the value in this, the stage name value in the new record, new opportunity instance record is different from what was in the old one. So if the values don't match, not equal to, if I say not equal to, that means stage name has been modified. I can say that, right? Let's quickly save this, and now let's go back to our opportunity record. And where is our stage name? Our stage name is here. Let's do something. Let's say closed. Instead of this, let's go to negotiation. I'm changing the stage here. Let's say save, right? This is saved. I should get a debug log. This is the debug log. Let's click on the debug only. So you see, I get the stage has been modified. I can complete my use case this way, right? There won't be a problem. I can just calculate the opportunity amount inside this if condition. I can do that. That should resolve my use case. But now, this is operating only on a single record. What if you had multiple opportunities imported, inserted, or stage names modified by a bulk update or a mass update or a mass transfer? How would you handle multiple records at once? Your method is capable of handling those multiple values, but your code is only working with one record. That's the very first record it's getting on the list, which is why this method does not work. Because this is not bulkified. And when we say bulkified, we mean your code should be able to handle more than one records at a time. Even though there's just one record, your code must be able to handle multiple records. That is a good practice to take consider and practice basically. Okay. So now instead of doing this, how do I figure out whether my stage has been modified? There are ways to do it. So now what I'll do is I'll iterate over my new records. Okay, now see what's different now. So I'll iterate over my new records, and inside this I'll iterate over my old records. Okay, so there are two loops wherein the old record loop is nested inside the new record loop. Okay, so I'll just name it new op. Cool. Now see, take an example. Let's say there's only one record. Okay, OPP1. So new records will contain one record, and old records will also contain one record. So this will come here for op1. This will run how many times? This for loop will run how many times? Only once, right? So it will enter this for loop for the first and the last time. Then it will see how many records are in the for loop inside. Again, one record. So this will also iterate once. Okay. Now what I am going to do here is I will first of all check if the new op dot stage name is not equal to old op dot stage name. I'll say system.debug stage has been modified. Now in case of one record, this will work. You will get the debug log, right? You want to test it out? Let's go ahead and go back and let's modify the stage name one more time. Let's say this is proposal price quote. Let's say save, right? Now if I take a look at the debug log, this should still give me the debug because the code is working as expected and it's working fine because we are still on one record level. So your outer iteration runs once, this runs once, and then it comes here, and because both of them have one record, it is obvious that you are comparing the same record, so you are able to see that the stage name is different. But now imagine there are more records. There is op1 and there's op2 and there's op3, right? Now this will run how many times? 3 times, and this will run again 3 times, right? So 3 into 3, 9. To say, if you have to give it an notation, it would be O of n square, loop within a loop, right? So now the for loop outside will run for op1, for op2 and op3. Whereas for each record here, this loop will run 3 times for op1, op2, op3. So now the very first time, op1 will be the record that comes in here, and then your inner for loop will execute 3 times for op1, op2 and op3, right? Once this is executed, it will go outside and it will now execute the outer loop for op2, and then this will run again 3 times for op1, 2 and 3, and then finally it will run for op3, and this will run again 3 times for op1, 2 and 3. Now if your if condition simply contains the stage name comparison, there might be a case wherein the opportunities that you are trying to compare are not the same. So you have to ensure that you are comparing the right opportunities. And what is the way to do that? The unique identifier for your opportunity identification is the ID field, right? So what we say is, we'll say if new op.id is equal to the old op.id, this tells you that I am on the same record. Agreed? Because whatever is in this particular loop has matched whatever is in my outside loop. So this criteria will hold true only for the records when the IDs match, right? How will this work? Let's say this is iterating for op1, and then this will iterate for op1, 2 and 3. Now for op1 and op1, for this combination, will this satisfy as true? Yes. But then will this satisfy as true for op2 and op3? No, because the IDs will be different, and that's how you are eliminating the incorrect comparison. Make sense? So using your ID attribute, you are able to compare whether you are on the same data or not. So you'll say new op.id equal to old op.id, and then you can say, followed by an ampersand, that are the stage names also different for these guys. That's when you can say, okay, I can compare the stage name because I'm comparing the right old op value and the new op value. Make sense? And if we now do this, we should be able to get the log, and this will give us the debug log. If I modify my stage and if I go back, I'll say save. And if you take a look at the debug log, this should give me the stage name has been modified. So you have been successfully able to figure out that the stage has been modified. The game does not end here. What have we used here? We have used trigger.new and trigger.old. Did you like the way I did things here? It was a bit messy, right? It took a lot of time. It's a bit complicated. I have to do extra checks. Is there a better way, Himanshu? Yes, there is. And this is where your trigger.new map and trigger.old map, these context variables come into picture. Now see what happens if I remove the trigger.old and I simply want to fetch trigger.old map. What is the difference between trigger.old and old map? Is just that the old map contains the old data, but it contains it in key value format where the key is the record ID, right? Now here the definition has this particular parameter here, but this will not be a list. Why? Because old map is of type map ID comma opportunity, and I can just name this as old map. Save. Okay, and now the error is out from here, but it is here because now old records do not exist. Now see how things change. You don't need this inner loop at all, right? Now what you can do is, let me get rid of this code, or let's leave this here down below so that you can compare. Now what I can do to compare the record IDs, I can say if old map dot get new op dot id dot stage name is not equal to new op dot stage name, system dot debug stage has been modified. Now see what I did there. Let's click on the save button first of all, and let's get rid of this particular section. Save. Let's see if this saves up fine. There are some problems. There's one problem. It says that void handle activities before update, list comma map, method does not exist or incorrect signature. Okay, it's here. I can now save it. This will also save up fine because I modified the parameter on the class, right? All looks good. Now see what I did here. See that extra loop is gone. How? I used the old map. Now what is old map again? Be with me. I'm explaining things like you don't know anything, but like that's important to be done. So let me do it step by step. It is key value pair. Okay, what is the key? The key is the record ID of opportunity and the value is the entire opportunity record. Okay, now I assume that you know collections and you are comfortable using maps, or you are able to fetch information from maps. If you are not, the get method gives you the value for a specific key. That's the method. So what we are doing here, we are telling old map, please come here, dot get, give me the value of the record where the ID is new map, new op.id. You see, I have this record available here on my outer loop. And if I just tell that old map that give me the value for this particular ID, it will return me the entire opportunity. Of course, with the old values, right? And that's what it is doing. So I tell it, you give me the entire old opportunity, but from that, just get me the stage name, because I want to check if the current record stage name is not equal to the old record stage name. And that, my friend, has been done in one line, only because I was able to use maps. If I use the standard list variable, I have to write 2 loops. That would be order of n square, right? 9 combinations would run. That would take more time, but this is cheaper in terms of complexity, and this is easier and less of maintenance. Make sense? So now if you notice, you are able to figure out that the stage name has been modified. Okay, and now if I do one more stage name check, let's move and say save, I would still get the debug log of that the stage name has been modified. Right? Why? Because remember, the old map contained the older version and that had the different close date. Similarly, it will have the older stage name, and that's why this not equal to true, not equal to value is evaluating to true, and it is going inside this if condition and giving you this debug log. Make sense? And this is out of the methods that we discussed, this is the best way to do it. There can definitely be better methods always, right? There's no limit to that, but this is the best out of all that we discussed. We started off by using the list variables trigger.new and trigger.old. We ran into a problem that we had to write multiple for loops, compare the if condition, compare the IDs, and then do operation based on the logic. Here, if you just use the old map, you are able to compare the values without an extra for loop. Okay, and now that we are inside the right for loop, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to update the opportunity amount. So I'll just say new op dot amount equals new op dot probability multiplied by new op dot expected revenue, and I'll say save. Do I need to do a database operation? No, because I am on the before context. It will automatically take my values and then go ahead and save the record to the database, right? That's why we are on the before context. Now let's see if this particular thing works. Refresh. And now what I'll be doing is I'll be modifying my stage name, and we'll closely take a look at what the amount value is. The amount is $235,000, right? Let's go to details and let's see. This is the stage field, and I'll just go ahead and say this should be proposal price and say save. And as soon as I save it, you see that the amount has been modified based on whatever the expected revenue multiplied by the probability is, the amount has changed. I know this does not make sense in terms of the business use case, because amount is the final value of an opportunity. So all of you guys who know sales process very nicely might argue this, but this is just a use case, and I've used 3 fields to explain you the before update context trigger. Nothing more than that. Don't try to make sense of why is this calculation happening. This is nonsense. It is nonsense, but you get the point here, right? So just for the fact that you had to compare whether a field has been modified, you have to go this route to check whether the field has changed or not. And you would be doing this a lot when you'll be writing code in triggers in classes, because you would have to check. You cannot run your update triggers every time for every record. No, if a specific field value changes, only then run a specific thing. And that's when these checks will come in handy. This will help you avoid SOCL 101, because or else unnecessary code will run. If I were not checking this code will run every time an update happens, right? And that does not make sense, because you have to ensure that the stage name is being modified. Only then this particular code runs. Cool. So that was use case 7. I hope this was fruitful. Let's meet on the next use case.